called won't let me go to the toilet to vomit, then I'll just have to vomit on you. This happened back in year 8, and for some background, I have a problem with my digestive system. I have a screwed up valve in my stomach that's out of sync, so anything I eat or drink, I throw up. So in high school, I was sitting in a French lesson, 9 years worth of that crap, and I don't know anything past hello. And I needed to throw up. The rule was, I had to put my hand up and ask the teacher if I could throw up. Freaking stupid, but that's high school for ya. And here's the cast. French teacher. And me. Duh. Oh, Miss French teacher, I need to go throw up. Can I go to the toilet?
No, I don't believe that you actually need to throw up. You're just trying to get out for working.
I never actually ditched any lessons in high school, so this made 0 sense to me and the rest of the class. But it's on the system. I have a sickness problem. Check it if you don't believe me.
Oh, be quiet. I don't believe you. End off.
This really pissed me off, obviously, but after a bit of back and forth, I gave up trying to be nice, so I got up, walked to her bin, picked it up, looked her dead in the eyes, and blew freaking chunks into it. She freaked out, demanding I now go to the toilet, but it's too late. Most of it was already out. Now, most of it, not all. I wasn't done yet, so I say I'm all good. Then look at her, and then blow a few more chunks onto her. Now, I know my reaction was over the top, but I was young, and in my opinion, she brought it on herself because checking the system would have taken less than 20 seconds to do. Holy heck, I've never had this many upvotes on anything before, thank you all. Mwah, mwah. Those were hugs and kisses, by the way. Don't make those noises when you hug someone, by the way. This guy's reaction was justifiable. I personally didn't have that issue, or don't have that issue, but I did frequently have tummy troubles in school due to what I thought was lactose intolerance, but I don't know. Like, I would eat cereal and oatmeal with milk and drink chocolate milk all the time and I'd be fine, but if something was like really greasy or cheesy or something, tummy troubles activated. Seriously though, what did the teacher expect? Like, did she want him to swallow it? Does she freaking think he's Moto and he likes it chunky? Alright, this one's called Told Everyone Private Information About Me? Have fun untelling them, all of them. Warning, this post talks about get-out-of-baby-free cards, and the comments include some get-out-of-baby card debate and some get-out-of-baby card jokes. Jeez. I told a coworker in confidence about my pregnancy because I wanted to ask her about experiences with being pregnant, as she has the same disability as me. At that point, I hadn't decided whether to move forward with the pregnancy or not. Shortly afterwards, I began to strongly suspect she'd told everyone that I was pregnant, and they were setting up a surprise party to congratulate me. Also, shortly afterwards, I made the decision to terminate the pregnancy. I told the coworker that I'm planning to get a get-out-of-baby card, and she went pale. She said, "Oh, are you gonna tell everyone else?" And I responded, "Why would I? They don't know I'm pregnant, right?" And she looked really uncomfortable, then eventually confirmed my suspicions. She asked me to please tell everyone, but I said she made the mess by telling people my private medical information, so she has to clean it up. Enjoy telling the boomers that they have to cancel the party they're planning because there's a get-out-of-baby happening instead. Update: a few dirty looks coming my way. It begins. Oh my god. Oh no, that's incredibly uncomfortable. Man, that's just a bad situation there. I mean, I guess depending on how much you care about your coworkers' opinions of you, but either way, that coworker messed up and now it's just uncomfortable. Because unfortunately, prejudice exists. Alright, this one's called Don't Pick a Fight with a Comedian. I definitely don't make a living at it, but I do stand-up comedy. I have a deep voice and get asked quite often if I work in radio. One night, about 5 years ago, I'm doing the audience meet and greet after a show when a very drunk guy asks me the radio thing. I launch into my standard answer, No, but thanks for the compliment about my voice, etc. Drunk guy gets very belligerent and starts yelling, "You're lying! I recognize your voice. Why are you lying to me?" He points to the woman he's with. "Why are you lying to my wife?" I really thought he might punch me. Then I calmly replied, "Oh, I know where you recognize my voice from. I work as a strip club DJ." Then I turned to his wife and gave her a big smile. I don't think she noticed. She was too busy giving him a murderous glare. In case you're wondering, I was lying about the strip club thing. Oh! Alrighty, with all that petty nonsense out of the way, we can get on to the real good stuff. That is right. It is time for the highly anticipated r/SupernovaRevenge in the form of a cross post from r/ProRevenge. So the cross post title is, "This does not belong in Pro-Revenge. This is the real Supernova!" And then the title is, "My mother destroyed my childhood, made me fail out of college, and laughed when I was homeless. I destroyed her entire freaking life." Final update. You can find my prior posts here and here. I'd also like to thank Slazo, aka MK, on YouTube for sharing a GoFundMe I forgot about and sharing my story in one of his videos. You were really kind. Also, I'd like to thank user Ambrosia for sending me their old Nikon camera that still works like a charm. I appreciate your kindness. I still don't feel like I deserve it at times. Nonsense, you deserve the world, my lovely person. That was a nice, wholesome, sweet intro thing for a story that is, well, to be frank, the exact opposite, but you get what you come for, which is SupernovaRevenge. Anyway, after almost 25 years of violent abuse by my mother, I finally got the kind of revenge I've always dreamed about as a kid, going through the worst of it. But it didn't make me feel the way I expected. I'm sorry this post is so long. Reddit is the only place I ever really talk or write about my life in detail. I'm also sorry to all the people who suggested I take the high road. I didn't. You were all right. It didn't make me feel better. I know the deliberate steps I took to purposely ruin my mother's life makes me a bad person. I'm willing to accept that, and I'm going to continue trying to become the person I believe I can be. I'm not sorry. Lastly, if my sister ever reads this, I'm sorry I wasn't a better brother. Rehash! For those who aren't aware of my life, I'll try to summarize it all, but it's not something that's easily put into a short paragraph or two. Growing up, my mother was worse than hell. If you've ever wondered what it would be like if your worst enemy went back in time to raise you, you'd understand my life. At some point, around 9 to 10 years old, I began to realize how alone I was and how exhausting my life would turn out to be. I kept hoping this time she'd finally just continue wailing on me, hoping she'd just never stop beating me and finish the job. Either that, or I'd be so close to death, she'd be forced to take me to the hospital where they would question her and I'd somehow be saved. It seemed like nobody ever cared enough to look deeper. Dislocated my shoulder with a cast iron pipe, beating me every night until I ate things I was slightly allergic to, and then beating me more for throwing it up. Lit my Christmas presents I got, then having to be held back by her boyfriend at the time because she was holding a knife to my neck, telling me for the millionth time that I was worth less than my father, and nobody else would care if she did it. I could fill pages with all the things she did to me. I remember when she really started digging in and telling me I was worthless nearly every day. I was 13, and it was the first time I started contemplating suicide, though I was always too weak to follow through. My mother tried to kill me 3 or 4 times, if you count a half-assed poisoning. I say half-assed only because I vaguely remember the details, but it involved her forcing me to drink something with bleach in it. It's kind of funny in a sick way because I didn't even remember that until now, and that's not as bad as all the things I've put a lot of effort into not remembering. I just have a crappy memory, so I guess it helps. I don't think I've actually went longer than a few weeks without getting beaten bloody over something trivial, like not washing dishes fast enough or walking away too hard after just getting beat up by her. Years of physical and psychological attacks. Did I call the cops? Of course I did. Can you imagine how hard it was to watch my mother smile and lie to the cops, telling them I was exaggerating, then having to watch them get into their cars and drive away knowing I had to go back inside? In the beginning, I had hoped things would change. Towards my teen years, I started drinking and stopped caring. And now, here I am, after all of it, somehow still alive. My stepdad used to tell me, years after his divorce with my mother, that he only stayed with her because he was afraid she'd kill me one day. He's lucky he never saw how much worse it got when he wasn't there to take the hits for me anymore. It would break his heart. He was also the one who told me about my mother's being sexually abused while growing up in a different country, which helped me to gain some perspective in my teens. Not that it made a difference by then. It didn't matter to me because each and every day she had a choice every time, and she'd choose to hurt me every time. Maybe I'm overstating things, considering she didn't actually kill me, even though she has come close so many times. Maybe that means deep down she secretly cared about me or something? I don't know. I don't think about it. She did go out of her way to buy me new electronics often, but she'd end up using those as leverage against me and invading my privacy constantly, so it ultimately wasn't that much of anything. After everything and all the time she kicked me out from 13 to 17 years old, I was always on edge. She told me when I was 18, while I was staying with my aunt, that if I went to college, I'd always have a place to live. I don't know why I believed her. I had went to go stay with my aunt temporarily for 4 to 6 months after my mother kicked me out of the house at 17. But my mother would always stop by and buy groceries for me or leave me cash. She was unnaturally kind to me while I was there. By this point, she wasn't hitting me anymore. Not that she could, as I'd have snapped and absolutely wrecked her crap at that age, but I strongly dislike hurting people in any form, so the point is moot. And was more so prone to just verbal attacks, but since I was never really around her anymore, life seemed to get easier. My mother had learned more than enough ways to screw with me without touching me. It seemed like she hated me more than I hated myself at times. My aunt couldn't have me stay with her anymore as she really liked her privacy. I had already been there for a while, and I was an emotionally damaged and rebellious teenager. She didn't have time to help. So I went back to my mother's house for the last time and started attending community college full-time. I didn't really have any desire or passion. I was just an empty husk going through the motions. But I was still trying my best to keep living, even when I didn't feel the will, in the hopes that one day I'd feel something different for once. My mother, of course, decided to go back to her old habits. Things like dumping all the trash with dirty diapers and old food or dirty dishes filled with water on my bed when I was out if I forgot to do them, and sometimes just because she was in a mood. Locking me out in the snow for hours because I didn't respond to a text or something, even if I had class in a few hours. I wasn't even allowed to have keys. She'd pretend not to hear me when I rang the doorbell or knocked for hours. She'd also tell my younger sister to ignore it. I'd eventually end up having to sleep on the steps outside or at a friend's house and get punished for doing it, even though I was 18, because it was her house and her rules. It was always non-stop. I had no real direction, and I honestly had no plans to exist past 25 years old. Despite literally all of that and then some, I was doing well in school, community college. With a 3.6-ish GPA, I finally left my mother's house for the last time a few days before finals week. I came home from drinking with friends and was met with my mother glaring at me when I rang the bell at 9 p.m., yelling when I'd move out as soon as I walked in. She followed me to my little closet of a bedroom where I tried to close the door behind me, and she half ripped the door off the hinges. I just sat there on my bed and stared at her silently as she kept cursing and screaming questions at me. My mother then walks away, and as I'm in the kitchen getting juice, I hear her on the phone calling the cops on me, claiming she was scared I'd murder her or my younger siblings. I just didn't have the energy to deal. This was 3 days before I failed all of my finals because I couldn't even make it. I was dealing with too much. So I went and grabbed whatever I had and left 15 minutes later. My mother and I only ever really communicated via email after, though it was very rarely and it was very businesslike. I'd tell her what I needed and she'd either tell me to step off or give it to me. It was hard to maintain consistency in my life then. I was at rock bottom all the time. I didn't care about anything. I drank every day, hung out with the worst kind of people who brought out the worst in me. I bounced between cheap rooms and couches. It was early 2016 when I discovered photography, and it completely changed the direction of my life. I didn't hang out with anyone or bother trying to maintain all the pointless relationships. I just dove headfirst into it. I was able to put the things I didn't understand about myself into perspective. For the first time in my life, I felt something. Not like a feeling per se, just like this sense of possibility. For the first time, I was seriously wondering just what I could be capable of. I had something to look forward to. I felt like if I pushed myself as hard as possible, I'd be good at something and I'd be a good person. And so, I isolated myself from nearly everyone I knew and spent every single day learning or practicing or being frustrated that I wasn't getting results. Even though I was drinking heavily, I always held a job and kept doing photo shoots and kept practicing like mad. I eventually got my first apartment and was functional for a year. Did I have my crap together? Hell no, but I was figuring my crap out. Cue one of the worst days of my life. Me getting robbed while I was blacked out drunk for 2 months' rent and camera gear by a friend, which led me to losing my apartment and job, followed by an email by my mother asking how I'd been. We ended up talking on the phone, and it was civil for like 3 minutes before I mentioned how hard things have really been for me. She was bragging about some new expensive speaker system she bought, and I, like a dumbass, asked her for money, about $100. I told her if I could give my landlord anything, he'd be reasonable and give me time to get more cash together and I'd be fine. That obviously did not go well at all. It all escalates to her literally laughing and then telling me it was my own fault for being homeless. She also completely denied ever abusing me when I stated I was in this situation because of her. I hung up on her. My thoughts were all over the place and I felt this intense frustration, more so than anger. Within a few moments, my head cleared, and I had decided something as I was sitting in my bedroom 5 or so minutes after the call. I decided that I was going to completely ruin my mother's freaking life, no matter